what are the principles of men communicating attractively to women?
So we have broken down the flirting process. Let's see if I can do this. It's been a long time since I've had to get out there and do this. The first piece is...
Massive lad.
So the first piece of it is just interest that we think about. And let's pretend that you're in a bar or something. What we're trying to avoid in this stage is I have to go to the bathroom. I'm just bored of you. And so when we're talking about this is the playful stuff that we mentioned. It's a lot of the things with what do you do, where you're from, finding ways to be interesting. This isn't sexy necessarily. This isn't I want to hook up with you. It's just I want this interaction to continue. The second piece that I think a lot of guys skip out on is having genuine standards. When you receive a letter from Harvard University that you've been accepted, it feels wonderful. When you receive a letter from the community college that takes 100% of the people, it doesn't feel good. And the truth about dating, like it or not, is that we often date people to affirm things about ourselves. So when you have no standards for this other person and they feel like they could have been anyone, like truly it was their shape that attracted you to them, it doesn't generate any sort of interest in you. But if you're indicating through interaction, for instance, if you're out at a bar or a club and somebody is rude to a waiter or waitress or bartender, you go, oh my God, I can't stand people who do that. If I were, I don't care how beautiful or fun or sexy you are. Like when I see that kind of behavior, it's a total turnoff. Just as an aside in a conversation, that's communicating to the person that they care about my personality, right? And now the thing is, you want to have genuine standards. So this is easier for people who have dated and who have had, perhaps dated someone they were very attracted to, who had personality traits that they didn't really like. If you can go through your history and ask yourself, what are the things that really do attract me to people that are not sexuality or, shape-based things? What are the things that make me repulsed? And list those out and find ways to incorporate those into conversation. For instance, I have most enjoyed my relationships with women who were incredibly affectionate. So when someone early in an interaction says, I'm a hugger, I go, oh my God, I'm going to love you. Like I'm the same way. I can't stand people that just want to touch on the shoulder, say hello, or high five every time. And that communicates to them that there are things that I am selecting for and you actually are within that category. Now, it is crucial here this is not a strategy to fake, right? If you're just saying these things and really it's no, it's you just have the shape and the look, it's not going to work nearly as well. And it's also just not good for you. You're going to wind up in the relationship that sucks. And then the last piece is sexual tension. And I think this is the part that is probably most uncomfortable for a lot of guys, is being able to sit in a sexually tense scenario, which might be lingering on eye contact with someone, interaction with a smirk on your face. It might be dancing close without having to crack a joke. Being able to manage that sexual tension while sometimes relieving it with that playful push-pull stuff does not come natural to most people. They try to escape it as soon as they feel it, and therefore they're never
sitting with that
any
discomfort's
sort of
hard.
Oh yeah, and it is tense. It's this in between stage of, do you like me? Do I like you? Are we going to kiss, or are we just looking into each other's eyes? And being able to hold that and enjoy that is something that we talk about. It takes some time to develop, but there are some things that you can do. So, for instance, most people, if they go on a date, say you match someone on Tinder or Hinge, they'll go to a bar, they'll sit down on opposite sides of a booth, talk about work, and then okay, at the end of the night, well, hope you had a good time, and there's been no sexual tension built. Versus if you go to the bar, you say, hey, let's sit over here. You sit at the bar. While you're communicating with them, you put your hand on their hand. When they make a joke, you say, I love that. You give them a hug. You hold their arm while you're telling a story to demonstrate what somebody did. You are building this sort of this physical tension between the two of you that gets more and more comfortable and allows for those sort of close, is it happening, isn't it happening interactions. And you're not putting all the weight from going from 0 to 60 with the goodnight kiss at the doorstep, which feels awful and is just an amount of discomfort that is not fun for anybody to experience. So those are the sort of the buckets that I think about, at least when I'm talking about it. And what I try to ask guys specifically to do, because it's a different scenario with girls, is to think about where they are not going to the next level. And it's oh, they're just walking away from me as I start conversations. Okay, let's talk about being more interesting in conversation. Or I've never actually, I'm hitting on girls and I'm being fun and interesting, but they have a sense that I'm just a player and they don't want to talk to me. It's like, well, you've got no standards. And then so going through those, using that as a diagnostic tool is something that we do.
I think guys are probably quite fearful about running out of stuff to say as well. Have you got strategies for small talk?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different videos in terms of women, specifically in flirting scenarios. This is the hardest things. My brain is like this, and you've seen in this interaction. I'm a logistical person. When you ask me a question, I want to answer it literally. The best thing for small talk is to recognize that, especially on a date or in a bar or club, they just want a vibe. You don't have to have topics. It's not about
not a fucking
family,
podcast.
Work. Yeah, it's a podcast. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be fun, playful world building. So, if she says, "Oh my God, like you went to Jamaica, I studied abroad there," be like, "Oh my God, fantastic! After this bar, we're going to the airport. We're going to get on a plane. We're going to go scuba dive, and we'll be there tomorrow morning. We're going to have to fund this. So somehow, I don't know, I'm going to have to take up a job selling Lucy cigarettes on the street. Whatever. You're just this playful world building is a way that men tend not to instinctively communicate.
What do you mean by world building?
What I just created was almost an improvisational comedy scenario. Like, we're going to go here. Here's what's going to happen. Obviously, none of this is real. This is. I'm definitely not going to sell Lucy cigarettes to fund a plane ride for tomorrow. But when you can build these fake, fun, obviously not real fantasy scenarios that people participate in, and sometimes men do this with their good friends when they're all in a group of people. That would be like if blah 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 blah. Oh my God! When you do that with women in fun ways, that tends to set the vibe to be this fun, flirty thing that she can contribute to. And say, well, we're not going to stay in the same room tonight. Be like, perfect. I'm going to get I'm going to have the penthouse, and you could sleep in, the water closet or whatever. And no, I don't want to sleep in the water closet. So these are the types of things that are ridiculous that most men would never think about doing in conversation, but that are genuinely fun once you try on this new style of conversing. Now, of course, there's still going to be time for what do you do, where are you from, what's your work, but especially in a bar nightclub scenario, which is I think what I'm tending towards more. If you lead with, here's my cool job, I work at Goldman Sachs, that's incredibly boring. I can't tell you the number of guys in New York I saw who started by handing out business cards instead of doing this fun stuff first, and then they'll be like, who are you? Tell me about yourself. And then at that point,
the Goldman Sachs thing actually comes in as a pattern interrupt, and you're like, oh, holy fuck. Like, he's actually funny and interesting, and he's prepared to sell loose cigarettes, and he's got a job at an investment bank.
Yes, exactly. And the best way then when you're talking about, okay, I work in an investment bank, is to speak to your values. Again, people want to know your vibe and your values, not just the logistics of what you do. So if you say I work at Goldman Sachs, a much stronger way is to think, well, what drove me? Hopefully it's not just a sense of greed, but I grew up poor and I always wanted to be able to take care of my mom and family. So I don't want to be an investment banker for the rest of my life, but it's helping me to one day buy a house for my mom. Like that, if true, so attractive, so much more engaging than I'm a banker at Goldman Sachs. So if you're setting a vibe or sharing your values, those are two very strong modes of conversation to be in compared to just answering questions logistically, honestly.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, man. I'm interested to find out what you think most men go wrong when approaching women. And if there's girls that are watching, they can put some of their nightmare scenarios down in the comments below as well.
Well, women have a very different understanding of this because when they think what goes wrong with men, they're selecting for the men that have approached them, right? And so they're going, oh, they were way too pushy, way too forward. They said this goofy thing. They did some nice guys stuff where they told me like they could be my boyfriend and I'd never have to go cold. The truth is most guys are not in that category. They're not walking up to you. They're thinking about it, but not doing it. Right. So that's by far.
That's 99.9%.
That's 99.9% is not engaging in conversation. So that's definitely the thing that most of them do wrong. Though when women think about what do most men do wrong, they're going to go to the horror stories of the 0.1% that just come in like complete arrogant asses. So yeah, it's disqualifying yourself before you've spoken to someone. And there's 100 different ways to speak to someone, mentalities that can help. But going in with a vibe of curiosity. And again, flirt with the world. I think one of the things that men do wrong is that they try to be these snipers, which is like these boring people who walk through life not talking to anyone, not engaging with the cashier, and then they're going to see the most beautiful woman at the bar who is surrounded by people who want to speak to her, and they're going to go, now I'm going to turn it on.
Yeah, by the power of Grayskull, they decide to pick up the fucking sword. Right, it's time to turn it on.
It's time to do it. Yeah, and then they Hulk out and just do it. That's not how it's ever been with me. I haven't seen it done that way. It's by flirting with the world. It's by recognizing that the person that you should flirt with is the next person you interact with, and whether that's someone in your apartment building as you're taking the elevator who is an older gentleman, like being that outgoing, fun, friendly person, setting a vibe, goofing off. And then just happening to be near the person that you're interested in is going to be much, much more powerful because it's not something that you've got to like gear up for. It's something that is going to be habituated into the way that you're used to speaking with people. It won't feel like such a stretch.
What's happening, people? If you enjoyed that, then press here for the full, unedited episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.